Welcome to another episode of the Work It podcast. I'm Gerald.
And I'm Nat. We're your hosts, kicking off a brand new year with a topic that is on many fresh graduates' minds right now, Gerald. So,
What do we have?
every new year, people always set new year resolutions. I want to get that promotion. I want to ask for a higher salary. But you know what I've been hearing from a lot of my younger friends who are
Mhm.
just about to enter the workforce? It is so difficult to get a job. They don't even know if they can get one this year.
Wow, tell me about it.
Yeah.
The news and all the sentiments around fresh graduate and employment has been, not quite positive.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been very negative. People are thinking of not even going into a career, but doing multiple side gigs to just get by
Mm.
because it's been so bleak trying to get an interview, even trying to get your resume noticed,
Yeah.
that they don't know if, in a year, in 2 years' time, will they be working full time or will they still be struggling to get something?
Yeah, I mean, some of the people I've met,
Mm.
they share the same experiences as what you have heard. They're taking on side gigs.
Yeah.
They are delaying their entry into work. There are some of them thinking of doing further studies. Basically anything, right, to wait out this season of
Yeah.
the life. And it looks like, as we head into 2026, the Singapore National Employer Federation, they say that 3 in 5 employers may freeze hiring in the
Mm.
year. So it looks like things will not be looking out so much. So,
Yeah.
which is why I guess today we are here to talk about this job apocalypse.
Yes, this job apocalypse or job apocalypse,
Yeah.
for those who like new terms. So this is clearly something is happening with entry level work. The path used to be stable. It used to be just study hard, graduate, get a job, but it feels broken.
Mm.
So we're asking what needs to be done? What is happening to early careers and how do we prepare young people for the jobs that may not exist by the time that they graduate?
Yeah, so today we are really very excited to have two guests with us. All right, to help us to tackle this topic, we've got Chiew Chun Wee, Regional Policy and Insights Lead at the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. And we also have Adeline Tiah, Career Coach and Change Management Consultant for local startups and some Fortune 500 global MNCs. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Why does it feel like starting a career is so much harder today than it was when we were starting our career? Chunwi, do you have any thoughts on what's going on?
First of all, the environment is clearly very different.
Mm.
We didn't mention it explicitly, but AI is on everyone's mind. Technology has made things very, very different. Number one, looking at the reality versus perception. And the reality, when we look at the adoption of AI in organization, is that it is still a little bit patchy. It is perhaps not what the headline is leading us to believe, that everyone is getting on it and then, going full steam with it. Our observation is that many companies, they are kind of trialing out AI in lower stake, limited tasks. Like, for example, transcribing and summarizing minutes, or doing some writing work, or doing some basic research, right? And they're not really implementing it in a very sophisticated manner. You are hearing companies saying, "Oh, we're reducing the headcounts, okay, we're freezing," and so on. And that is true. But at the same time, we're also seeing a few different signals. For example, there's this Swedish fintech company called Klarna. They've just been listed in the US. So in the past couple of years, they have been cutting down on headcount because they have developed this AI tool. And then more recently, the CEO came out and he confessed that they have overestimated the capability of AI. And as a result of that, they're getting lower customer satisfaction rating. Customers are complaining that the responses they get are too generic. They're not empathizing with them and so on. And they're bringing back human
Right.
into the workforce to help address that missing trust that they're getting. So it's a mixed signal in all these different places. And I think what we're seeing is, instead of replacing human, what is probably going to happen, and that is our stance, is that you're going to augment the role.
So I want to bring Adeline into the conversation, right? Because, what we hear Chun Wee saying is AI, it seems to be a bit of mixed signal. Adeline, you work with younger professionals, young adults. How do they see this? How do they make sense of this whole picture, right? AI and their jobs, what's the relationship that they see between these two things?
There are some who are actually very progressive, who decided to start their own business leveraging on AI to streamline their processes and developing AI agents. There are also another group who are just clueless and who do not have the agency and the urgency to take charge and own their career. There is a bleak outlook right now. I do see possibilities if the Gen Zs or it can apply to anybody, right, who is able to step up and to look at it positively with a new lens and say, how can I make use of AI to solve a business problem? I think it requires a whole mindset shift.
So you are saying that there are some younger people, some younger job seekers who will benefit from this move and some who will not.
Yes.
All right. Would you want to elaborate a bit more on those who will not be able to?
Ultimately, it boils down to mindset, right? Still, I think the parents perhaps do play a part, the education system as well. But I would just talk about parents who will actually do not allow their kids to experiment, to try new things. They still have the traditional mindset of, studying, find a job, and then you work hard and you retire. But that narrative has to change. Those people who are highly successful are people who actually make an intentional effort to learn skills outside of their own main domain. As a marketing graduate, I've worked with some mentees who are marketing graduates. They make an effort to actually get out of the comfort zone, learn skills like data mining. So building skill stacks outside of the domain of experience or the degree does help.
Well, we've seemed to zoom in on something that seems to be one of the root causes of what's going on here. But outside of these technological innovations, the emergence of AI, are there other factors that are causing this disruption of early careers in the workforce?
Yeah, if you look back at the history, from Industrial Revolution 1 through Industrial Revolution 3, every time when there is technology advancement, there is systemic change in society, in economic systems, because many jobs will be displaced, new jobs are created. It's no different now. AI is a catalyst, there's no doubt. It's just another new technology. I wouldn't say a job apocalypse, but it would be adaptation crisis, and we need to address that because people who fail to adapt and think 2 steps ahead and look at how they can leverage on new technology to solve a business problem, that's when people fall behind.
I think technology is a big part of it. But also, I think we need to recognize that the economy is not doing that fantastic now. And with the trade wars and the geopolitical situation, companies are also getting quite cautious.
Do you think that because of how social media has displayed what some people's idea of a good working life is, or what the job market is like, is causing a huge difference in what people expect to find in a salary, in a job, versus the reality when they actually start looking for something?
Yeah. I will add on to that, right? Because a lot of the younger people I met, they would tell me the expectations actually seem to be everything, right? They want the stability, they want the flexibility, they want to do something they like to do as well. Is it a case of the expectations are too high? Is it realistic to think that way?
I think what they're seeing are the possibility, and maybe there needs to be a little bit of reality check. But at the same time, I would say, and I'm taking notes from Adeline, let them experiment, let them try, and let them figure things out a little bit. So I think it's a positive development. It's an additional avenue that's available to the young people nowadays. We do this global talent trend survey on an annual basis. And last year, or actually this year, 2025 result, we are seeing a huge number of young people saying that they want to be their own boss at some point. So entrepreneurial spirit is really high, and also a lot of people are doing side gigs.
So is this the same as what you are seeing on the ground when you're speaking to these young people entering the workforce as well?
Well, I believe that social media does inflate the perception that people are more complacent. I do see a wide spectrum of people. Take, for example, my niece and nephew, and even my son. 6 years ago, when they entered the university, This is before, that was at the height of COVID, and that was before AI came into the picture. And they told me that the seniors advised them to take on internship.
Mm.
So they diligently took the seniors' advice, took up internship every year, and that experience actually helped them build a portfolio. So when they graduated, it was easy for them to find a job. If you look at the job postings on LinkedIn or Indeed these days, you hardly see any posting that says fresh grads can apply.
Yeah.
They need 2 or 3 years of experience.
Why
Examples:
is that so? Like, why are we seeing less of that?
employers are expecting fresh grads to come on the job and be able to create value from day one. And as I said, 6 years ago, the people who were entering the university were advised by the seniors who were already in the workforce that having internship helps.
Yeah, but in my mind, this practice seems like it's going to come to a head eventually, because the answer now seems to be find more internships of a wide variety that display that you have some working knowledge or at least a base knowledge in certain things. And that just makes it incredibly more difficult for a fresh grad to find a first job, because they're having to do so many more things than the generation before them. And then eventually the level of the playing field will raise by one, and then you'll have to do even more things on top of that. So is this a sustainable thing for the job market? Because you'll find in the future, I think, that you'll have fresh grads who have like 10 different internships in a variety of different fields, who are coming into a job years after they have graduated, and that's their first job. So
Yeah.
do you guys have any thoughts on this?
It's not about the number of internship, but it's about the intention behind it.
Right.
The landscape has evolved from a workplace learning to a more self-directed learning. So a person can be very intentional about learning, whether through intentionally seeking out internship to help you build that skill set, or taking up micro learnings to help the person. I think the whole idea is the person needs to be very curious and be willing to learn.
A lot of the fresh graduates and young people looking for jobs, they used to think that looking for a job is like I just apply and then I get. But it seems like now there's a lot more that they have to do. They are expected to have 1 to 3 years of working experience. It really does seem like it's harder. They have to work harder, and there's less opportunity out there. Yeah,
But I also feel that despite this, there is more possibilities if you are able to embrace that, because technology has enabled them with more possibilities. Remote working, for example, opportunities to work overseas without traveling. More new jobs are being created that in the past wasn't available. They could use technology to create new business models as well.
Right. Well, we are also seeing that a lot more companies are looking for mid-level talent rather than fresh talent. And Chun Wee, you've shared about how some organizations who are rethinking how they structure their company in this way, it's causing a little bit of a shift in the shape of the talent that exists in that company. Right now, it's a pyramid because a lot of people are at the bottom and there are a few at the top. But you're saying that some organizations are flipping the script and going for a diamond shape instead.
Yeah.
So could you explain your little analogy in this?
And I think this is linked to what has been discussed about recruitment at the entry level or at the mid level. I think companies really need to think, is this sustainable? You don't need to be super smart to see that this is not going to be sustainable, right? If you're all recruiting at that mid level, if it's diamond shape, who is going to replace those people when they move out or when those people at the top retire? So this is, to our mind, something which the organization really need to think through. It is really important for us to think longer term, right? Because in the short term, you may say, this is what I need and this is what I'm going to recruit for. And maybe later on, I can get people from outside. But ultimately, if depending on the organization, if you are, for example, a consulting firm or Big Four or a mid-tier firm, right, or a law firm, this is what you have been working with for decades, for forever. And if you're going to change this, what you end up with is a unsustainable model where people may not be as committed to the organization, one, and also, some of this history, some of the nuance in the learning will just disappear because they don't get trained right from the very beginning. We need to recognize, which is very, very positive, is jobs are getting so interesting now. much more interesting than before. One of the very common advice that the seniors up to the partners will tell us when we were little boy and girl auditor is that hang in there, you tahan. After a while, your job will become interesting. Right? After some years, when you progress through the rank, you become interesting. Now they don't have to wait for that to happen because it can be interesting from the onset because all these boring little tying numbers are gone already. Right? But that also means that the company will need to be training people differently and giving them different roles. So you can't be expecting the young people to be there to press a button to generate the report and that's it. Right? There needs to be some review, validation, just rationalizing it, coming up with insights and so on. So there's this whole layer of value adding things that you can do from the onset. And that is important training as well. Right. So I do think it's very, very positive.
Well, my experience is that I get a lot of calls from organizations to help train their staff, their employees, to take ownership of their career and to think about their roles within the organization, how they can create value. So there is definitely an urgency of in organizations to address that and to help the employees shift from being a victim, having a victim mindset, to a more empowering mindset. And I think that's good news as well.
Right.
So in terms of the work that you do with the employees, right, to have that to shift away from that victim mindset, what can you do? I mean, what can fresh graduates do? Fresh job seekers do, as they want to make their way into the workplace, what kind of mindset should they have then?
Well, two things I would like to focus on. Entrepreneur mindset. I wrote about it in my book as well. I think when I talk about entrepreneur mindset, is you don't need to be an entrepreneur to be one. But thinking like an entrepreneur, meaning looking at any issues, like what problems can I solve? What are the market gaps out there? And are there organizations who have the market gaps that I can solve the problem? So it's that same mindset that they can bring to the organization when they join the workforce, and also the same way they can articulate their problem solving skills when they go for interviews. The other mindset, I would say, it's really being able to stack your skills outside of your own domain. Building skills, I would say transdisciplinary learning. Learn about skills that is outside of your main domain.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in on this because, as I mentioned earlier in our research, we found that a lot of people want to be their own boss at some point. So the first question that you ask yourself is, does that mean I'm going to lose all these people? They're going to go out and be their own boss. I think there is a way that the company can react and respond to that, and also to Adeline's speak about the changing of the mindset, which is creating opportunities within the organization that will allow them to be their own boss in a way. So to own certain projects, to own certain processes, right? So I have this story that someone told me that this was like 5-6 years ago, and this is a small audit firm. And they have an intern. He was horrified to realize that in order to book a meeting room, you have to go to the receptionist who may or may not be in a good mood, and you have to get her to write something in that spreadsheet, a paper spreadsheet, and in order to get that booked. And he went to the big boss, the big partner, and he said, do you want to give me an opportunity to try design something so that you can do it online? And the boss thought, well, there's no harm, so go ahead. So before he left the company with a simple system, online booking system, where everyone can just log in and just book the room whenever they want. So it sounds like a very small little thing, but this is about the company allowing an opportunity to do something, to fix an issue that they see, right, for the good of the company, and the company end up benefiting from it as well.
Right. So because companies are looking for these kinds of people, these people who bring much more value to the organization, people at entry-level roles will have to differentiate themselves to be able to gain these skills, gain this exposure in the industry, and then showcase that they are worthy of a first job there or a position.
Absolutely, and he can put that in his CV. Like,
fact-
if I'm the one looking at it, I'll be very impressed.
Yeah.
In fact, I just want to add on that increasingly, I'm seeing a couple of Gen Zs who have a full-time job and they craft out time on the weekend to build their side hustles. And when they go back to work, they're able to bring that problem-solving skills back to the workplace to create value. So I see that there's actually more possibilities. Really, whether it's Gen Z or anybody out there, they need to just have a more positive mindset and be able to embrace that change.
If we are looking towards the new year, if you are looking for a job and you are finding it difficult, I guess you got to change your mindset. You've got to do some things to distinguish yourself from everybody else that is looking for a job. It's just the new way that things are going.
You got to kind of find a little gap, a little problem that you can solve, show that you can add value to a company.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it was fun speaking to you guys. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome back to our Ask Me Anything segment. If you are plagued by a problem at work, maybe you should write to us and we will try our best to help you out with it. Today's question was sent in by our listener, William. He says he doesn't like communicating with his new boss because every time they discuss something, his boss's replies confuse him. For example, his boss often gives vague answers that don't address his questions. Now, William is finding this especially frustrating because this is making his team's job more difficult than ever, and he himself is struggling to find the guidance that he needs in his day-to-day work. So, Gerald, what should William do?
Wow, I think for William, having such a boss, it can be super frustrating.
Yeah.
The boss is not doing his job to give the guidance. It sounds like, there's a lot of communication, but there's not enough understanding.
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly what he's going through. I've never had a boss that I've been so frustrated with, but I have had bosses in which communications with them is a little bit difficult.
Like,
right?
what's it like for you?
So it feels like we're talking two entirely different languages. Like I'm trying to ask how to fix this problem, and they're just talking about a much broader spectrum of problems entirely. And we're trying to fix something, but we don't know what each of us are looking at. In these situations, I find myself thinking like, can I just offload this to someone else who can actually understand what the boss is asking, or can it just not be me to solve this problem?
Yeah, this sounds like what could be what William is facing actually.
Mm.
There's also some other kinds of bosses that would intentionally give you vague answers, right? I don't know whether you have those before.
I don't know, but now it's starting to ring some bells. So
I know someone who told me that the boss would say, you should know,
yeah.
right? Intentionally giving you very vague answers and telling you that it's your job to find out.
Or it's like a boss who, when you ask them, they're like, what do you think?
Uh,
And then they let you try to discover the answers on your own.
yeah, I'm the boss. You're supposed to come to me with answers, not questions, right?
Yeah.
So practically, I guess there are some things that William can do. Maybe seek some clarity in terms of what's going on behind the communication, the instruction. I mean, William shouldn't be too afraid to ask for some clarity by saying, boss, I just want to make sure that I hear you correctly. Did you mean this, or what do you mean that, and or maybe even how does your instructions fulfill the problem that we are trying to work on?
Yeah, exactly. And I feel this is something that a lot of people might not be the most comfortable with, which is over communicating. And sometimes it's really just necessary to over communicate if you want to get something done and the two of you are not on the same page, because that makes sure that there is clarity between the two parties, make sure that no mistakes are made, make sure that no work is wasted.
Yeah. I do feel that sometimes it's our own cultures. We tend to be very mindful that we are talking to our bosses. We don't want to look silly, especially in a room where nobody's asking the question. Everybody thinks they know, but then after the meeting, everybody was like, what did boss say? Actually, I also don't know. Everybody's like wondering, and then that is really a missed opportunity, right? For even the boss to also understand perhaps that his or her communication styles is not quite hitting home.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes I think bosses do need that feedback that they need to communicate better, clearer. And if today some employees help them to figure out how can they communicate more effectively, whether is it in a spoken form or maybe even written form, right? Writing down some of the key points down and then running through your boss to make sure that this is really what you mean, and then circulating those key points. I think that's another great way to make sure that things get on track with the discussion.
Exactly. But what if we're working with a boss who is not only a bad communicator, but perhaps a little bit difficult to reach in the first place or difficult to work with? What do you think William can do in these kind of situations?
I think if the boss is avoidant about these things, then I think William really needs to first, decide whether is it really very serious, how serious it is, because you need to really grab your boss time to have that communication, right? The other part, of course, really reaching out to your boss to let your boss know that how he or she can help you with your work. I think bosses may not like to change the way they communicate, but if you say I can work better if today I know these things, or you let me know information along these lines, the way you communicate with me, can it be this way? Then I think that could really help them, right? I had an experience working with someone before who told me that, you know what, I don't like messages or random ad hoc instructions here and there. Can you like put down everything on a piece of paper for me? And I felt that wow, that was a big part, for me to change. But it worked for the person, and I was willing to do it, right? And I could see a performance improvement, so it's worthwhile.
Yeah, and it's always helpful not to assume malice whenever we're discussing these things in the workplace. Always look towards a more solution-oriented path forward. So, if per se William's boss was listening to this episode as well, and they realize that they are the one who has some communication issues, what should the boss then do to make sure that this doesn't happen for the future?
Wow, I don't know, man. I just feel that like if today William's boss has that self-awareness to realize that things can be better in terms of communication, right? Then ask for that feedback.
Yeah.
Ask people how can I communicate better so that everybody gets the work done faster and in a more effective manner. I do think that the workplace itself, because it's always evolving, new people come and go. Bosses really owe it to themselves to try their best to learn how to communicate with the different people. In a multi-generational workforce, you have older, younger workers. Everyone perceives things differently, right?
Yeah.
So I think as a boss, as a manager, as a supervisor, it's up to you. It's for you to go and figure out what's the best way to communicate to them. Sometimes you can say the same thing, right? But different groups perceive it differently. So you got to be more effective. Figure out what would help them to understand your intended message.
Yeah, and for people like William, I guess, if you are working in a team, you can always consult those who have worked with the boss in the past.
Definitely.
Maybe he has used the same language before and referred to different things. So that could bring some clarity into the situation without you having to confront the problem head on,
Yes.
right? Yeah, so if, like William, you have a work-related dilemma, write to us. We are at cnapodcast@mediacorp.com.sg, and you can find the Work It podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Me Listen.
I'm Gerald.
And I'm Nat. And remember, clarity may not always come from your boss, but it can always come from you.